So I would like to introduce Terrence Sampson. He traveled here from Texas today. He's on holiday, and I heard him speak when I was out in Dallas in October, and I asked if he could speak, and he said, I'll be out there in December. And so I was like, cool, and I'll be there with my parents, so that was even better. So you'll hear his story, and actually, let me read his introduction. So Terrence, he was incarcerated at the age of 12 for a violent crime that he deeply and passionately regrets. After 5 years in the juvenile system, he was transferred to an adult prison as a 17-year-old kid, where he spent the next 24 years growing up in prison. After almost 3 decades of the harsh realities of prison life, he was released from prison at the age of 42. Paying his debt to society for the crime he committed as a child, he grew up in the juvenile justice and adult prison systems, learning to avoid and overcome the depths of depression, suicide thoughts, gang affiliation, drug addiction, and the utter feelings of hopelessness. Determined to make the best of a grim situation, and thanks to the support of his parents for his entire incarceration, he was able to achieve a bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's degree in literature, while also writing 2 memoirs, Chasing Redemption and A Message About Hope. And these were done during his incarceration.
Cool.
Terrence also served as a peer educator for the Gang Renunciation and Disassociation Program, where he mentored some of the most violent men in the Texas prison system. Among the several programs he completed while incarcerated, he credits his participation in the Bridges to Life Restorative Justice Program for helping him to understand the consequences of violence from the victim's perspective. The experience propelled him towards embracing his purpose in life, to transform something destructive and painful into life-enriching and empowering opportunities. After spending nearly his entire life incarcerated, he's determined not to see another child experience what he went through in his life before or during his incarceration. Now, as the executive director of the All Youth Matter Project, AYM, he's committed to helping people make positive changes and achieve their full potential. With a genuinely remorseful heart, he lives each day driven by the need to seek redemption for his childhood actions and to give back to society as much as possible. Today, he's available to share his experience on overcoming adversity and the importance of making positive choices for success in life. So please welcome professional speaker and author, Terrence Sampson.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
First, I'd like to give glory and honor to God for allowing me to stand here today to be able to talk to you today. I'm a man that has come a very long way, very long way. I was incarcerated, like Julia said, at the age of 12 for a crime that I regretted, that I committed to this day. It's left a hole in my heart, a hole in my soul. But I try to fill it. We try to make positive strides forward in impacting people's lives in a positive way, in the manner in which I hope that I do today. Now, I know that some of you in the audience have children incarcerated, and so today I want to talk about turning meaningful, transforming something meaningful.
That's all right, son.
Okay, here we go. So today we're going to talk about transforming something destructive and painful into life-enriching and empowering opportunities. And what I mean by that is that the worst that can happen in life is that I believe is someone losing their life in an act of violence. I believe that's the worst thing that probably can happen in life. And so what do we do after that? So this is my story today that I want to share with you about what we can do after that, and what we can do while that person who has committed that crime is growing in an environment that's really not productive for growth. If it's not for support, then there is no growth in that type of environment, which is prison. And so I stand here today as a product of the love and the support of my beautiful parents, my mother, my father, who stood by my side every day of my incarceration, every day from the age of 12 until I was released when I was 42 years old. Had it not been for the support of my mother and my father, I do not know where I would be. For I was in prison and I saw the effect of people that didn't have the type of support that I had. And a couple of those stories I'm gonna share with you today is about what happens when people do not have support in prison. But as for me, I had the support and I'm grateful for it. So my story started at a very young age. At a very young age. My story started when I was 12 years old. Now you can look at this child on this picture and you would think that this is an innocent looking little boy. Pretty much the same type of child that you could see in any type of junior high, anywhere across America. But this little boy had a lot of problems internally. He struggled with anger. He struggled with feelings of feeling of being inadequate. He struggled with feelings of trying to be something that he wasn't, to prove points to people that was his age, but that he wanted to be accepted by. He struggled with all these things. And eventually, because of some childhood traumatic experiences that he had, I regrettably took the life of my neighbor, Kelly Roman, in a terrible manner. Something that to this day, I regret wholeheartedly. Something to this day, I wish that I could take back and erase, but I can't. But this little boy started out as a 12-year-old child that committed this crime, confused, not understanding who he was, not understanding what he had done, and surely not understanding what lied ahead. But because he had parents that stood by his side and supported him, because when he was incarcerated and went to the Texas Youth Commission, he met Miss Carolyn Esparza, which was his first counselor. She helped him to understand his anger issues. She helped his parents to understand the issue that was in the household that might have led to these type of things. And she helped us to become whole again as a family. But because of her and my parents, those were the three people that I had in my life that supported me my entire incarceration. And had it not been for those people, like I said earlier, I do not know where I would be. The things that I want to talk to you today about those who have people incarcerated are the 5 unexpected lessons that I learned while I was incarcerated. And those lessons were education, which is a focus for redirection, accountability, taking responsibility, forgiveness, which is establishing a foundation for change. That's something that I learned, that if you want to make changes in your life, you have to learn to forgive, because a lot of us will held back because of the bitterness that we have towards other people and the things people have done to us. Dreaming, it's important to dream, and hope is the key to perseverance. But before I talk about those things, I want to talk about some issues that was brought to my attention upon my release by a lot of people that asked questions. How did you make it? What was prison really like? And so first, when people ask me how I made it, I tell people that when you are covered by the grace of God, and you have the support of people that truly love you, you can endure about anything, pretty much anything in your life. But when people ask about questions about, okay, well, what was prison really like? I have to tell you that it's not like what you saw on TV. So I'm gonna dispel 3 myths to you right now, about prison living. The first myth, people always, they like to talk about the dropping of soap. You drop the soap in the shower. People don't pick up soap when the soap is dropped in the shower. People just kick the soap right on down the drain, wash off, and call it a day. There's no dropping the soap. You don't see those type of episodes. That's not real life living. Prison is not as cozy and as clean as you see on TV. I don't know what it is like in other states, but in the state of Texas, there is no AC on over 85% of the units. And so you're sleeping in 90-degree weather in the winter. In the summer, and you're sleeping in 40 to 50 degree weather in the winter. And finally, prison isn't overly aggressive 24 hours out of the day. It's not like people are walking around prison and running around prison with shanks, trying to kill people every day. Prison is just like any other community. You know, outside community, you have issues of, you have good places to be in your community. You have bad places to be in your community. So in prison, we call the good places the suburbs. You know, it's like, it's the friendly units. It's a unit that you go to, that when you're trying to get your education, you're trying to do the right thing, they're gonna house people who are moving in a forward, you know, moving forward with their life. Those type of people are gonna get housed together, as opposed to the people that are not, the people that are gang related, the people that are drug addicted. Okay, now they live on some pretty terrible units, you know, but those are mostly the younger offenders, people that have been incarcerated at a very young age that are still trying to make a name for themselves. I was one of those people, so I understand that type of process of being young and growing up in prison. But it's not all just, okay, well, every day it's just it's a massacre of people trying to, you know, hurt each other. I mean, it's some good times. I had some good times in prison. I met some good people. I was involved with some organizations that came to the unit that, you know, that helped us change our lives. Bridges to Life is one of them, one of those organizations I will talk to you about later. But prison is not just about, okay, well, we're gonna destroy, we're gonna, you know, it's not just about this. So, you know, those who have family incarcerated, don't think that your loved one is living every day in a hostile environment where his life is in danger. That's highly unlikely. You know, what I learned about my experience in prison is that your experience is going to be predicated upon the company that you keep. If you are in a gang, if you are selling drugs, these type of things happen in prison. You know, crime exists inside of prison walls. Those things happen. If you're doing those type of things, then most likely you're gonna have a traumatic, you know, experience in prison. But if you're in school, you know, if you're in the church house, if you're trying to be around other positive people, then most likely those chances decrease of you having, you know, a traumatic experience or someone, you know, harming you or things of that nature. So if your loved one is incarcerated and he is around the right type of people, then most likely your loved one is having, you know, can have a good productive experience, because there is a such thing as post-traumatic growth. You know, we talk about post-traumatic, you know, stress, but there is a such thing as post-traumatic growth, which will happen when people are around other people that are moving forward in a positive direction. And so if I had to tell you in my suggestion as far as, okay, well, what can you do for your loved one? First, I would like to talk about the importance of education. And I'm thankful that my parents, you know, they put that education on me, told me that that's something that can never be taken from me. That, you know, when, you know, that if I have to serve this time, son, we want you to be better than what you were when you got out. We want you to be prepared to deal with this life out here by being educated. And through education, I met some very important people in my life that helped me to grow. You know, because I learned from people who were strong in my areas of weakness. See, when you go on that path of education, you're meeting other people that are on that path of trying to do something with their lives. You know, and so at me being young and getting into the school system, I was around a lot of older individuals that were far ahead of me as far as maturity-wise, and as far as experience in life. And I was able to rub shoulders with them and talk to them, and they was able to tell me, okay, well, look, this is the hand that you've been dealt, but you got to deal with it. You know, you're not going to live, you can't live hoping, you know, for a better past. I learned that very early, even though I didn't pay attention to those lessons. I learned those lessons very early. And I also met professors when I was going to college that always encouraged me, you know, to be accountable for my behavior, be accountable for my future. That, you know, even though I made terrible mistakes in my life, that wasn't the end of my life. You know, so through education, I met those type of people that impacted my life in a positive way. And that leads to my second point of accountability. You know, you learn that you have to be accountable in order to be able to move forward in your life. People that make terrible mistakes, if I don't accept accountability for those mistakes that I made, then it is likely that I'm going to make that mistake again. You know, I have to be able to accept accountability, and that's where the support of the loved ones come into play. There has to be conversations about accountability. Now, I'm not saying that we should live in the past, that when you go see your loved one, that you should live, you know, in the past mistakes, but he has to be able, or she has to be able to accept accountability for the things she done, and then hold herself accountable, or hold himself accountable to make amends for those things. Then there's a conversation of forgiveness. I learned a very valuable lesson when I took the Bridges to Life. and my screen is dead. I got a picture of my Bridges to Life group.
Just
And
hit just, and
yeah, my Bridges to Life group. I have a picture of my Bridges to Life group in August of 2017. I was exposed to the Bridges to Life program in the state of Texas. I was exposed to the Bridges to Life program in the state of Texas. And I was exposed to the Bridges to Life program in the state of Texas. And what Bridges to Life is, it is a restorative justice program. And initially, when Bridges to Life was brought to my unit, I protested against this program because one of the family members of my victim was a part of Bridges to Life. And they had put my crime and my picture on one of the training programs that they had. So, I mean, everybody knew who I was, knew what I did. Well, at that time, I thought it was unfair. You know, you singling me out, you know, for the terrible thing that I had done in my life. And I didn't think that it was fair that you just singled me out on this unit and everybody knew who I was and whatnot. And so I protested. And then it kind of like, they went away for a little bit and then they brought it back to the unit. And it's like I prayed on it the second time that it was brought to the unit. And I prayed on it and I asked God, I said, okay, well, what is it that you want of me in this situation right now? Do you want me to face this? Because if you want me to face this, then that's what I would do. And that's the answer that I believe that I received from God, was to face it. And so what I did is I took the program, and I'm gonna tell you, it changed my life. Throughout Bridges to Life, you hear the stories of the victims. Every week in our class, a victim would come up and talk about the things that happened to them or to their loved one. You had people that told stories about the children being murdered. You had people that told stories about the husbands or fathers being murdered. You heard these stories every week. And so once you were able to see from the victim's perspective the damage that you've done, me, others members of my group, once we were able to see the damage that we did, we had no choice but to look in the mirror and tell ourselves what we're gonna do next. Because see, we don't know that. You know, a person that's incarcerated does not know the damage that has been done on the other side of the fence. We don't understand the damage that has been done with our family. I look at my parents. My parents had plenty of opportunities to turn their back on me. I put my parents in debt trying to pay for my lawyer. My parents lost their home because of the mistake that I had made. My parents were talked about and they were ridiculed because of the mistake that I made. We don't understand those type of things unless those conversations are had with us. And I had those conversations with my family, you know, through counseling. You know, and so that's one thing. Another thing that I want to encourage you to do as well is to talk to your loved one about the real life consequences of the choices that they made. That all ties into accountability, but it also ties into forgiveness. Forgiveness in the sense that he needs to know, or she needs to know, that you forgive them for what they have put you through. Now I know that they may not seem like something that is important to do, but I'm telling you that if you have a conversation with your loved one and you tell them that, look, you made those mistakes, but I forgive you because you don't put me through a lot. I'm fortunate to have parents that went through counseling with me, so that I was able to understand exactly what I put them through. But to hear them tell me that they forgive me, to hear them tell me that they still support me no matter what, is very empowering. It's empowering, and it motivated me to want to be better. It motivated me not to want to prove people wrong. So I don't believe in proving people wrong, but I believe in proving people right for their belief in me. I believe in proving people right for having faith in me. And that's what they did for me. It's made me want to prove my parents right for their faith and their belief in me. So having those conversations about forgiveness and helping the individual to forgive himself, but to also take the accountability for wanting to make amends for what he done, that's also part, to me, it's part of forgiveness, because that's part of the change. In order for you to experience the real type of change in your life, you have to be accountable. You have to forgive yourself. You have to forgive others for the things that they've done to you, because everything that happened, violence is not just a single event. Violence, any act of violence is a culmination of events or unresolved issues that an individual has just not resolved. That he just didn't know I had problems, I just didn't know I had. I didn't know how to ask for help at 12 years old. You know, and I had people that were in my life that understood what was going on, that was part of groups of like what we have right now, that can be able to talk to another parent and tell another parent, okay, well, if this is going on here, you might want to talk to him about this. Had those things existed when I was, before I got incarcerated, then I might not have made the mistakes that I made. But my parents didn't know how to handle the situation with me. They didn't even know what to do after the fact, after I was incarcerated, except for to do what they only knew how to do, and that was to be loyal. And that's what they were to me, were loyal and supportive. So the fourth thing I want to talk to you about, as far as what you can talk to your loved one about, is the importance of dreaming. Now, in prison, we will often hear about the X that's on our back. When you get out of prison, these doors are going to be closed to you. You're not going to be able to do this. You're not going to be able to do that. So many restrictions and limitations are placed on our lives. But I want to tell you today that one of the most important things that you can do for your loved one is to talk to him about his dreams. Encourage him to dream and not have any limitations. Because one thing about dreaming and one thing about a pursuit of any form, any type of goal, is that you're going to experience failure. You're going to experience rejection. That's all part of the process. But I want to encourage you today to talk to your loved one about their dreams and encourage them to complete the process, because they have to experience that failure and they have to experience their rejection. That's just a part of life. You know, and so the last thing that I want to talk to you today about is the importance of hope. And to talk to you about the importance of hope, I have to introduce you to a very good friend of mine. His name is Commodore Ross. Whenever I talk about Commodore, I get very emotional, because out of everything that I've experienced throughout my incarceration, my experience with him was the one thing that stuck with me and that really hurt me the most. I met Commodore when I was 14 years old and he was 13. Commodore had committed a murder just like I had committed a murder when he was a child, and he was assigned to the Texas Youth Commission. Commodore he faced the real possibility of going to prison for a crime that he committed as a child. But see, this is the thing about the Determined Sentence Act back then, is that you were 17 years old, you commit a crime between the ages of 10 and 16, and the state could determine to sentence you to prison or to send you back to TYC to complete your time. Well, we all faced the real possibility of going to prison for the crimes we had committed as children. And Commodore had a learning disability. Commodore was very insecure. And as his brothers, we loved Commodore. He was our brother, and we loved him dearly. But we often mocked him, you know, for his learning disability. You know, we did the things that teenagers do. You know, even though we loved him and we protected him, you know, we did not tell him that, you know, we loved him. We did not tell him that he was important to us. At the age of 15, Commodore started talking about killing himself before he turned 21. Looking back now, you know, as a man, how can a child at the age of 15 put an expiration date on his life? What could have been going on with him that would cause him to put an expiration date on his life? Well, what was going on with Commodore is that he didn't have everything that I had. Commodore didn't have support. You know, he had a grandmother that was sickly, that cared for him, that sent him and wrote him letters every now and then, letters that we had to read to him because he was illiterate and he didn't know how to read. And she was the only form of support that he had. You know, his brothers that was incarcerated with him mocked him. You know, we kind of beat up on him. He was a run of the pack. The staff that was there didn't pay a lot of attention to him. He was screaming out, you know, when a child is talking about killing himself at the age of 15, that means that something is wrong. But he didn't get the attention that he needed. When he was 16 years old, a year after he started talking about killing himself, Commodore lost his grandmother. The only thing that he had in his life. The only person that he had in his life that he felt like loved him with all the heart. He lost her, she passed away. Then things with Commodore became different. He became a different person. When I talk about the importance of support throughout incarceration, the most violent people that I knew that were incarcerated were the people that didn't have any support. When you have that support, you have something to live for. When you don't have that support, you become a product of your environment. See, at one point in my life, I was a product of my environment and I had support. But I was a product of my environment because I was running from myself. I was running from accountability. I was running from owning what I had done and seeking amends for what I had done. Other people didn't have support, and so they became violent because they wanted to take advantage of other people, you know, to get the things that they wanted in prison. Commodore became one of those type of people at the age of 16. He lost his grandmother. He felt like he had nothing to live for. No one was listening to Commodore. Commodore cried out on September 13th of 1994. Commodore assaulted a staff member. And this came out the blue. You know, we fought amongst each other, but we hardly ever had, you know, put our hands on the staff. There was hardly, you know, a lot of assaults on staff at that time. But Commodore assaulted the staff member for one reason. He wanted to be placed in isolation cell because he knew that once he assaulted that staff member, that he was going straight to prison. And so Commodore assaulted the staff member, was placed in isolation cell, and then Commodore made himself a memory to me and his brothers by hanging himself and taking his life while he awaited transfer to prison. Now, when I tell Commodore's story, I talk to people about the importance of hope. Why was it important for Commodore to have hope? Well, it was important for him to have hope because he felt like he had nothing to live for. It's important for our brothers and sisters that are incarcerated to have hope so they feel like that they have something to live for. If you make a person, if you encourage a person and have that positive reinforcement to an individual and tell them to look, life will get better, telling that to a person and then showing that with the support. And support is not just about money and going to visit. You know, support is about reinforcing hope, planting good seeds, you know, being there to support a person when they say, look, this is what I want to do with my life. I'm tired of being this way. I want to make changes. You know, a lot of things, one thing about my parents that people don't know is that when I was pursuing my master's degree, I had to pay for that. When I had my bachelor's degree, I had got a grant and I was able to pay for that bachelor's degree with that grant. But when I got my master's degree, I needed financial assistance to do that. My father sitting in this audience, he's a high school dropout. There's one thing that my father told me during this time is that when you leave this prison, this is what support means. When you leave this prison, you're not gonna have to worry about working for anyone because I'm gonna make a way for you to have your own job when you get up out here. You don't have to worry about anybody judging you. My father, high school dropout, started his own business. My father started his own Jack King, scrubbed toilets, swept, mop, and waxed floors to help pay for my master's degree. That's support. That's being able to say that, look, no matter what, whatever you need, I'm gonna make a way to do that. Now, I'm not saying that everybody has to take that stance to be able to make those type of sacrifices to help their loved one. But I'm showing you the result of that by looking at me today, because I'm a product of that. I'm a product of scrubbing those toilets and sweeping and waxing those floors. I'm a product of that. Those things allow me to meet people to help me along my way. So if there's anything that I hope that today that I have given you is one, I'm hoping I've given you an overview of what it would really take to be able to be the support system that someone needs that's incarcerated. It's not just about money and business. It's about communication. A lot of communication. And communication is not just about, hey, this is what's going on out here. You know, your cousin doing this, your brother doing this. Communication is about, hey, how you doing? What's going on with you? You know, what are your plans for the future? What have you let go? What are you holding on to? Have you forgiven yourself for the things that you've done? Have you forgiven other people for the things that they've done against you? It's about having those type of conversations. It's about reinforcing hope. It's about showing them that they're important to you. Because when a person feels like they matter to someone, like I felt like I mattered to my parents, I wanted to make them proud. When people feel like they matter, that's what they're gonna do. They're gonna want to make you proud. So hopefully I gave you something today that would help you to be able to be the support system that your loved one needed and that you understand that there are many more people that are incarcerated that need to be supported. Thank you for your time.